Hello, all. I would like to welcome you to this episode of Conversations. These conversations are little snapshot recordings where we as a church get to share with the world around us what we're learning together as we study God's Word. And this past weekend on February the 16th, we were looking at the first chapter of the book of James in the New Testament of the Bible. The book of James is very interesting, one of the earliest, according to scholars, written books of the New Testament. And it is a letter from the half-brother of Jesus who became a follower of his after the resurrection, testifying about who Jesus was. And he became this incredible leader in the early church in Jerusalem during the middle part of the book of Acts, somewhere in the mid AD 40s to early AD 51. We see it is James that is leading the church in Jerusalem. But James led the church through some really difficult times when the Jewish persecution of Jewish believers, people that were followers of Christ, but also came from a Hebrew background, whenever they had made this profession of their faith in Jesus as the Messiah, the one that the Old Testament promised and prophesied about coming to be the Redeemer, that God was coming to be a deliverer of his people. Not everybody dealt with that in a very popular way, and for many of the Jewish believers, they were exiled throughout the Roman Empire, and James is writing to them. And in the middle of their diaspora, in the middle of their exile, James is letting them know that they have a reason to count this for joy. And this adversity actually makes us have a greater dependence on Christ. It makes us have a greater dependence on who he is, the nature of his character, the attributes that are in his being, and the provisions that are from his hand. And why does that do that? In fact, why does the writer of James say, "Consider it a great joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you experience various trials, because you know that the testing of your faith produces endurance. And let endurance have its full effect, so that you may be mature and complete, lacking nothing. And now if any of you lacks wisdom, he should ask God, who gives to all generously and ungrudgingly, and it will be given to him. But let him ask in faith without doubting. For the doubter is like a surging sea driven and tossed by the wind, and that person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord, being double-minded in all his ways." So just highlighting a few things that James is making clear here. This seems like a completely irrational request, that you're going through a severe trial, so consider that a joy. Yeah, that can seem kind of outlandish and kind of strange and even an odd request. But what we need to make clear is that James is not telling the believers that they should put a happy, joy face on it and just smile and grin and bear it, but that they should consider what God is doing in the midst of such times that would make us have dependence on him in that adversity. That we're not to look at the trial itself as something that is joyous and that we should welcome the trial for the trial being the trial, but we should welcome what the Lord was teaching us and is teaching us in the midst of such trials. So thinking upon it that way, we see God having his ultimate supremacy over all of these tribulations, over all these troubles, over all these trials, and that they are worthy of joy. But we may ask, well, why or how is that? Well, God being supreme over these trials, one of the things that he can lead us to do as we consider it pure joy and we experience these various trials is because we know that this testing of our faith, it produces endurance. It is maturing us. It is helping us to have full effect and mature, complete, lacking nothing. One of the things that Jesus does is in our life, he works the purposes of his hands together for our good to those who love him or are called according to his purpose, so that we might be conformed to the image of his son. So as we are seeing God supreme over these trials, we're seeing how he is using them to help bring us maturity and more Christ-like, more looking like the image bearers that we were intended to be. We also see in the middle of this that not only are we being drawn and made more like Jesus, we see that there is a dependency on the wisdom of God as greater than the wisdom of man. You see, the one thing about trials is we don't often know what we don't often know. And when we go through trials, it brings the clarity that there are a lot of things that we do not know, that we are not sure of, and we can't know. Um, One pastor was putting it this way, that with human wisdom, it is always going to be limited. We are not going to know all that is happening in the moment. We don't have perfect knowledge. We have limited, finite knowledge. We don't know everything that is going on in a reality at once. But compared to God, his wisdom is infinite. He knows every aspect of reality at one moment, anytime, any given time. Because he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He's omniscient. He's all-knowing. As Adrian Rogers once put it, has it ever occurred to you that nothing ever occurred to God? He didn't just wake up and go, aha. So God knows every reality in the moment. God also has a greater perspective. We don't often know all the angles. We can't see. We have tunnel vision, but God sees every aspect of it. We often don't have the experience, but there's never been something that God has walked through that he's had to learn something. He has every bit of perfect perspective. So human wisdom, while it's limited, God's wisdom is unlimited, and we need to come to God as those who lack wisdom, to go to the one who doesn't, and to ask for the one who is generous and ungrudging, and he gives wisdom to us. His infinite wisdom is known to his finite beings. And so we can come to him. And so what we begin to see is God is supreme over these trials and tribulations and troubles. And he has this way of bringing joy at it, because not only is it helping us to be mature and lacking nothing, to understand that God is our shepherd, and because of him we have everything we could ever need, but also that we are able to grasp his understanding in a new way. We're able to learn that what we couldn't learn before, and we're able to depend on him in that moment to be the supplier of that wisdom that we do not possess, but he does, and he graciously gives. We not only understand we not only gain an understanding of his understanding because of his supremacy over the trials, but we also begin seeing a dependency on his inventory. We can understand that while we are sometimes poor and broken and frail and without possession, without provision, God never deals with that. He always has provision, and that we can desperately cling to him who lovingly provides for us. And when we feel like we have everything we need, we're reminded that no, even in those times of great supply, when we have great benefit, there's still God to cling on to and to claim and hold on to dearly, that we need him in those times. And so we're reminded to look at God's inventory as far greater than our inventory. But lastly, we're reminded that this is something of joy, not only because we grow more into the image of Christ, not only because we gain a better understanding from a godly wisdom point of view, and not only because we begin seeing God as the perfect provision, the perfect provider, the one who has all things in his hands and graciously gives us, but we also see what it means to pursue the right things in life. It wakes us up to see what is trivial and what is eternal, what is of little worth and what is of far greater worth. And that the Bible tells us that when we endure the trials, blessed is the one who endures the trials, because when he has stood the test, he'll receive the crown of life that God has promised to those who love him. To those who love him, we are seeking to bring him honor. And we will live for the blessings that come from God, that which only is of, it's weighed by his worth system. It's what he has placed value on. It is what is profitable because it comes from the Lord. And so these are some of the first reasons why we can have dependence in adversity. And so we'll be talking a little bit more about this on the 23rd here at Eastgate Baptist Church. And we welcome you to check out more information about who we are, what we believe, what's going on at Eastgate. And if you are in the Flint, Michigan area, we would love for you to come check us out here. We're over on Atherton Road, just off of Center, and that's funny, just off of Center. But yeah, we are just on Atherton Road. I don't know why that's so funny to me, but yeah, check us out at eastgatebaptist.org. Find us on Facebook, YouTube, wherever you may have found this video. We're on Twitter and Instagram as well. And as always, it's a conversation because it's us sharing a little bit about who we are. But if you would like to connect with us further and take a next step, then comment, message us, find us and email us and call us. We would love to discuss more with you and have a even further in-depth conversation because we all want to help people. We want to help people take their next step with Jesus as they follow him. And if we can help you and encourage you, challenge you in any of those ways, please look us up and we would love to do that. Until next time, may you be blessed by the Lord richly and may you follow him passionately. And God bless.